Welcome to a new episode of Observability Talk. If you have not seen our previous episode, I highly recommend that you listen to our conversation with Professor Balaji of IIT Madras on generative AI and observability. Today, we are glad to have Abid Neemuchwala, co-founder and director of Dallas Venture Capital. Abid is a visionary leader. As former CEO of Wipro, he oversaw an $8 billion business with more than 1.8 lakh employees. Abid wears multiple hats these days. He brings his invaluable experience of a lifetime to advise and guide startups in their growth journeys. He also sits on the board of various companies, demonstrating his leadership in driving them towards innovation, growth, and stakeholder engagement. And beyond that, Abid loves traveling and reading. More importantly, Abid is very passionate about Indian startup ecosystem. Good morning, Abid. Thank you for joining us today on this conversation. My first question to you is that you basically have been a board member, a leader in technology. We'd like to understand your perspective on digital transformation and customer experience. Specifically, how do you see observability playing a pivotal role in these areas?
First of all, good morning and thank you, Bharat, for having me on this podcast. I'm very excited from a DVC perspective to partner with VUNet, and you guys are an amazing team in an amazing area. You know, observability has always been very close to my heart in terms of ensuring a good customer experience. While historically in the days of Tivoli and, BMC Patrol and many other observability tools 20 years back, and I might be aging myself when I say that, it was seen as an infrastructure back-end activity. But with digital, like everything in technology, digital has brought it made it about the customer and the customer experience. And hence, observability has also kind of taken that leap as to why it is important for customer experience. And I believe that a business process, you can look at observability from a business process perspective, from an application layer perspective, and then infrastructure layer perspective. But across all of this, what observability allows you to do as a business is ensure that there is a seamless experience for the customer and there is no downtime. Because even a small downtime, apart from the business impact that it has, it's irritating to the customer. And it plays a very detrimental role. Downtimes play a very detrimental role in customer experience. And that is why I believe now, even you talked about the board members' perspective, I see this more as a strategic element to the business ensuring a good customer experience, rather than a decision that you leave it just to the CIO to maintain back office processes of IT infrastructure and others like the olden days. So today, in the digital world, to ensure a great customer experience, I think being able to observe your platforms and platforms across the entire ecosystem for uptime is critical and very strategic to organizations.
Thank you so much, Abid. And I think you have very clearly told, right, that boards have started discussing observability in the boardroom. And a couple of months back, when we were having internally some discussions, we also felt that the board should start looking at a new role, which is called Chief Observability Officer, right? Where observability becoming so critical for the board as well, right? Moving on, I would like you to talk about how GenAI, because GenAI is becoming very, very critical, and going forward, it is the way people are talking about GenAI being used in multiple use cases. How do you see GenAI transforming the landscape of enterprise technology systems? And do you see a convergence of technologies like observability, cybersecurity, and business intelligence across different domains?
A great question. I personally believe that as there is a proliferation of data from various sources across an enterprise, and I like to use the word extra price. What is inside the enterprise, but also what is with your partners and your ecosystem around you. It has become almost manually impossible to look at all of the events simultaneously and make sense out of it. And that is why you need to use computational power to do that. And machine learning and Gen AI provide the technology to be able to do event correlation across multiple inputs, multiple variants, all of that. So I think AI in general and machine learning and Gen AI in particular play a pivotal role. Almost they enable observability for today, like they enable cybersecurity for today, like they enable analytics for today. So there is a huge amount of convergence across all of this. Because what is the challenge in cybersecurity? Challenge is very similar or very analogous to observability. That, you have your network, you have your cloud infrastructure, you have your applications, and there are so many events happening. And today, the world is about predicting. The world is not about analyzing. And that is why you need to know stuff and watch trends before an adverse event happens. Whether it is downtime from an observability perspective, or whether it is a cyber attack from a cybersecurity perspective, or whether it is a customer churn from a analytics and intelligence perspective. And that in all of these areas, Gen AI plays a big role, because it's almost humanly impossible to be able to look at the data, not only of your own enterprise, but from all the APIs that your enterprise is connected with, all of the extra price, all of the partners, all of the flow that is happening. And that is why Gen AI is and will play a very, very critical role in observability and across all of the aspects. And, all of these things are very intertwined because enterprises can make the best value out of their investments if they connect what they hear and see in observability platforms for customer experience and business uptime, what they see in cybersecurity and trust. And I call it trust because it is about data privacy, cybersecurity, all of those areas which keep customer trust, because trust is the foundation for customer experience. And then analytics and intelligence that you do from a business perspective to do more cross-sell, more upsell, provide better service and personalized service to your customers.
No, so very, very true, Abid. Thank you so much for explaining that. One of the things what we have been seeing in the market as well, that people are asking for unification of tools for that matter. Like you said, everything will converse in single tool, and they are looking at more unified way of looking at some of these data.
Oops.
This is very interesting space to be in at this point of time. The next question is more about your keen interest in the Indian startup ecosystem, right? Because Dallas Venture Capital is one of investors in ViewNet, I would want you to give a quick view in terms of what really caught your attention about ViewNet and what compelled you to invest in ViewNet.
So, I'm personally very excited with the B2B SaaS ecosystem that is developing in India. I think, like many things we've done in India, the B2B SaaS ecosystem has the ability to leapfrog the rest of the world. And we are seeing that in the payment space already with UPI and everything that India is doing on the India stack. I believe, having spent about 30 years in the Indian IT services industry, which is now a global force to reckon with, the next wave of growth in technology and the opportunity that India has is in the B2B SaaS space. But, unlike the IT industry, which are 30, 40 years to develop, the B2B SaaS industry doesn't have that much time. What the IT services industry did in 30, 40 years, perhaps you guys will have to do it in 10, 12 years. And that is where people like me and DVC will play a pivotal role, because it is a little bit of paying forward. Learning from all the mistakes and experiences that we had, we can be helpful in not only by just investing capital, but also providing the counsel and mentorship and advice. And especially for the Indian B2B SaaS startup ecosystem, I believe that the success will depend on not only accessing the Indian markets, which is like you prove the product market fit, you prove the concept. And as I said, sometimes there's a leapfrogging opportunity compared to the rest of the world. But after that, sell it into the developed markets, the US, the Western markets, and then all over the world, including Africa, Asia, Middle East. And DVC's business model, with what we call as DVC advantage, enables startups to go to market outside of India and provides the mentorship, the hiring ability, the customer connections, and the network to be successful over there. And from the day we saw VUNet, Ashwin, and yourself, Bharat, and others that we met, we fell in love with the company, because I think even personally for me, you opened my eyes with this very strong concept that VUNet has, which is observability is important not only from an infrastructure and the vertical stack of a single organization perspective, which is how everybody has thought about observability. You brought this wonderful concept of the whole customer journey across enterprises. And I think that was the killer idea, if I can say, because what is digital? Digital is all about customer journeys. And in payments, customer journey is not limited to one organization. When you buy a product in retail, the customer journey starts from selecting a product to paying for it. And in paying, there is a credit card operator or a payments operator, there is a payments clearing house, there is a merchant, there is a bank. And looking at the entire customer journey across all of that is what VUNet does in the payment space. And I think that is the future of observability. Observability will get verticalized across a customer journey, irrespective of how many organizational boundaries that journey has to undergo. Because finally, what are we talking about? We're talking about a great customer experience. We're not talking about an experience of a customer vis-a-vis one organization. And all of the current observability platforms, including, big companies like Datadog or Splunk or others, are all focused on enterprises' own vertical stack of observability and logging. Whereas VUNet came up with this wonderful concept of seeing observability from a customer's journey perspective across organizations. And you've very successfully implemented it in the India stack on UPI in the payment space. And that is what attracted us, apart from our enthusiasm for the B2B SaaS. Your entire concept and the product idea has been great. And again, you've got great customers. And this is an area, I think, where India is leapfrogging compared to the rest of the world. So having done it successfully in India, I think even in US, for example, what we have as UPI in India, FedNow will be the equivalent in the US. And that is still in very nascent stage, very early stage. And when I talk to a couple of financial industry experts, chief information officers in the US, and when they heard about the UPI and what VUNet is doing, they were surprised and said, "Oh my gosh, Abid, this is ahead of even what is there in the US. When US is ready, we will adopt VUNet." Which is a very big compliment for both the India stack and UPI and for what VUNet is doing. And that is what excited us. So it's always about the team, which is what we saw in all of you. It is about the technology. You are using deep technology to do it. And then it is about the traction that you are getting in the market. And we saw all the 3 T's check out, which is how DVC does its diligence and investments. And we are thankful that you gave us the opportunity to partner with you and invest in you, and how closely Ashwin and all of you work with us to make VUNet successful. So very excited about it.
Thank you so much, Abid, for the kind words. We are really happy to have you with us in this journey of making a world-class software product company out of India. And we will do everything possible to realize your vision of making this happen in next couple of years, right? So if you look at, right, that observability platforms basically being used by these large enterprises, and IT services companies or MSPs basically have a large role to play, because they basically provide these services to these enterprises. As your tenure of CEO of Wipro and your extensive involvement in managing these service providers, how do you perceive the role of observability, especially business journey observability or customer journey observability, which you talked about, in shaping the next growth for these IT services companies?
I think without going into specifics of any particular company, just having seen this landscape and lived across this for over 3 decades and interacted with Fortune 500 companies, Global 2000 companies to whom the Indian IT services and companies like Wipro, TCS and others provide services, I think leading in with a toolkit like VUNet is very important for their own future. And that is because the whole services landscape is changing in 2 or 3 very fundamental ways. Number one, customers want digital service providers. They don't want the legacy services providers where the Indian IT industry started. And as you pivot into digital, as we spoke earlier, it is all about ensuring great end client experience. And observability becomes a toolkit. There is almost 50 to 60% of the business that the Indian IT industry does is in managing the platforms for production across infrastructure, across applications, across business processes as a vertical stack. And observing across all of these vertical stack, a customer journey could be a great value proposition that the Indian IT industry can pivot itself to become a digital services provider. So that is a huge opportunity. The other opportunity is a domain-led. We talked about payment space, but there are hundreds of, a claim in a healthcare industry or in the insurance industry is again a customer journey that goes across multiple enterprises. There are many, many such examples. In every vertical, I can go vertical by vertical and say examples which are critical for a customer, but they don't happen in the 4 walls of one company. They happen because multiple companies come together and provide that final outcome to the customer. And guess what? The IT services companies have in their customer base all of these multiple players. So they are very well positioned to get these together and drive observability across their platforms, focusing on the customer and end consumer journey rather than the individual enterprises that they are providing services to. And that can be a huge innovation in how they are addressing the market. So I believe that, companies like VUNet and startups coming out of India in general will play a very pivotal role in the evolution because as it has been said very famously, that the software is going to eat the world. And I know as the CEO of Indian IT companies, every time they get asked the question, will the software disrupt the services industry? And I think if you don't adopt all the companies like VUNet as partners or even acquisitions by the Indian IT services companies, it will disrupt them. But my prediction is it will create an even bigger opportunity when the Indian IT industry takes much more of a stake in the Indian SaaS startup ecosystem to softwareize their services and provide the same experience at a much better productivity, at a much wider scope, and at a much better price point to the customers. So I think, the entire ecosystem of the startups, but especially companies like VUNet, are a great asset for the Indian IT services companies to partner with and evolve themselves from where they are to where they need to be.
No, very true. In fact, in one of my conversations today itself, I was talking to one of very large IT services company, and they were quite interested in not only partnering with us, they were also looking at exactly true to what you said. How do we invest in you, right? So that we can actually create much more close association with VUNet so that they can actually use VUNet product in whatever services business they are basically running. Right? These are very, very good insights, Abid. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. And looking forward to make your vision a reality in a couple of years from here. Thank you for joining us at Observability Talk. Please subscribe our podcast on your favorite podcast platform. And if you think someone would find this episode insightful, please share it with them. For more information about us, please visit our website www.viewnetsystems.com. Thank you.